Community Board. And I think we have staff dialing in, so Kat's on online, and that's the only staff member coming in is your and Tracy from TDC, obviously, Mr. Kirby and Gavin Dawson down the end. And we have got Councillor Alice might be joining us online. She was hoping to pop in, but she might call in online. Anyone else I've missed on there? I don't think we've got any media called in at the moment, but just for your information, this meeting is recorded. It's available on YouTube later. So yeah, everything you say is captured. So we have got no apologies, no leave of absence. We will go straight into public forum. I've got 6 speakers. First, now just to reiterate, for those, I think we've got a couple of new to public forum speakers. So we have 5 minutes. I'll set my timer just so I can keep on track. And it's basically just sticking to our standing orders, which is being respectful, trying not to personalize anything. Yeah, we'll interject if need be, but the floor is free for you to speak, and we will start with, oh, I've not done that. That's because you're going to do it. I know. We'll start off with karakia before we go into public forum. Deputy Chair is going to do it next month, but I'll hit this off today. So it's up on the screen there if anybody wants to follow along. Kia tau mai te maramatanga, kia tau mai te rangimārie, kia tau mai te kaha, me te whai whakaaro, mo tēnei kaupapa, hui e, tā ki e. So let's be grounded in clarity, let's be peaceful, let's be strong and considerate for this purpose, bind together, and so it is. So, Mr. Ogilvie, who there's no introduction to the public forum because you're a former councillor, you're up first for our public.
Yes. Madam Chair, thank you very much. And good afternoon, board members, councillors. And once again, thanks for the opportunity to say a few words. It's going to be, so welcome to what's the new year, 2025. It's going to be a busy year. Particularly, I believe the annual plan is being updated 25-26. And my first question is, will there be public consultation on that new updating of the annual plan? Some of the other issues I just wanted to comment on. We've got the local water done well discussions coming up. And they are very significant for Motueka because you've got the wastewater treatment plant in discussion. You've got also the stormwater mitigation programs to be considered, that local water done well discussions. We've got the Port Motueka structure plan, which is being prepared by the Boffin Miskel consultants, and that'll be a sort of a feature and a strong talking point among the whole community, really. Only those who are residents around Tuavis and Everett and North Street. A lot of people utilise and recreate and work at the port. So that's quite an important aspect of that. Now, I read where the Mayor King last week mentioned the Motueka office upgrade coming up. So that'll be an important development as well for the year. I really want to talk today and emphasise today your own community board rate. Because last year I was quite surprised and even disappointed that you had dropped it from $24 a year to $15 a year. And that $9, quite significant for the board and your expenditure. You've lost $45,000 worth of expenditure. And I just want to make a plea that you return that rate to at least your $24 when it comes to the annual plan this year. And my reasoning is two things. First of all, it's money which is well spent in the community. You consult extensively, you get good feedback from the community, do this, do that, lots of projects, lots of support for community organisations. And although $45,000 in council terms isn't a fantastic amount of money, locally, it can do a lot of small jobs thoroughly. And my second point really is, you've got elections coming up this year, and a new community board will be formed, was October or November. Don't hamstring the new community board with a low source of income. They'll have their own projects, their own programs, their own ideas, like you did when you came on. So that $24 or that extra $9 give them a $45,000 start to do what it may be around the town. Support community organisations, do small projects and the likes. Right across the ward, Maraho, Ruoka, Motueka, Mutri and the likes. So that's really my plea today, to do just that. I know that money also pays for your operations, but primarily and worthwhile, it pays for the projects and the support you give as a board to the organisations. So that's all, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hellier.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, there are matters arising from your email of acknowledgement of my address to the board last December on the Hamilton Proclamation. I am now in possession of 3 copies of the proclamation addressed to Janine Dowding, so I can provide you with a copy in digital or hard copy form. Which would you prefer?
Both.
Both? Well, there's the hard copy one. I'm interested in your statement about the legal advice that was sought on the document. Could you obtain a copy of that legal advice and have it attached to the copy of the proclamation you've offered to include in the December meeting minutes? 2 of the copies that I still have will be presented to the Richmond and Motueka libraries for public perusal. I will let you know how I get on, whether or not they will accept them or refuse them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Forey. Kevin.
Oh, sorry.
With Mike.
Board Chair Tarina and councillors and members, and Grant. Kevin, would you be able to get our email up so we can look at the photographs, please? So just while that's happening, Mike Dwyer and I use the pool fairly regularly. In fact, Mike uses it more than I do. And we also clean the pool in order to get some brownie points, so we feel that we make a contribution. That subject matter for people who use it who aren't there, of course, is another matter per se. But the pool does keep going because of a dedicated group of volunteers who will spend about an hour every fortnight in summer to do that work. Now, the reason why this meeting has actually occurred is partly that the Nelmac operator by the name of Paul sustained a very bad injury at the first clean pool out, and as the picture comes up on the screen there, the issue occurred because it was really overgrown in one sense. So that has occasioned a number of things. The work health and safety is being addressed, and volunteers now have to comply with a health and safety ordinance. In addition, the question of the use of the pool is Mike is going to talk about, because Mike uses it quite a lot. So if we go to second page, the second set of the next 3 photos, you'll see there, the one on the left-hand side, if it can be expanded, adults are using what is a railing to jump off and do the bombs. I mean, they must be practicing for the next World Championships. Motueka has the way of, I think it's called a motu, maybe. So the problem is that people are jumping off that area, and that is the least of our problems in one sense, because notwithstanding the fact that people will swim on the right-hand side from the steps down, the use of that area in that sense is not correct. And Lynn Hall from the TDC Parks and Recreation has got the signage in place. So the signage has been very low hanging fruit. People can't see it. And if they say it's not there. So there are going to be signs, no jumping, no dogs, and comply. So that's going to be put onto the pool in the not too distant future. What Mike's going to talk about is how much time have I got to read?
I'll be as quick.
2.
So,
Don't rush.
so the sluice gate that you can see in that picture there, the right-hand side, if you zoom in.
That bit of blob there is the gentleman speaking. So
Yeah.
here's the swimming.
The sluice gate is the item that concerns me most, because a lot of the younger kids clamber onto the top of that, and they do what I would call a sort of reverse backwards bomb. And very often their heads are only clearing that wheel and that stainless steel structure by inches. And it's only going to take one of them to slip and not push themselves out far enough, and they're going to get themselves a nasty gash. We don't want to spoil the kids' fun. And I'm pretty sure any amount of signage that you put up is not going to stop the little ones from jumping off the yellow hand railing. But I'd really like to stop that jumping off the sluice gate, because every time I'm there, it almost gives me a heart attack. Some of them come so close to it. And I'm very surprised we haven't had any accidents yet. So I think that Kevin and the lady you've been talking to, Lynn Hall, have come to some kind of idea on how that can be resolved.
Well, we put through to engineering to look at it, to make it so non-fun to jump off there. They're going to go back to the wall and jump off the railing. So it's the lesser of 2 evils. But you sit down, Mike, you swim along there. You ask him to
Yes,
look up and you think you're going to have an accident.
So the sort of the rule is that if you're going to swim, you swim away from the rail, because the kid's always jumping off the rail. And that's the unwritten rule. If you swim in near the seaside of the wall and you swimming towards the deep end, you've got these little biters up there jumping, and very, very concerned about them jumping onto you too. So you're always sort of looking up to make sure that they're not going to jump onto you. Like, I've had major back surgery. If one of them jumped on me, that'd be me tickets. So I'd like to see us discourage them from jumping on that side. And just live with the fact that they are invariably going to jump from the yellow railing side.
Yeah, to that extent. So that's with. So the pool is, as we know, the pool is a major asset to the town. So few people, many people use it. It's not an impost in that sense. It's self-cleaning. The Parks and Recreation Division have got new provisions in place to do the work health and safety. So volunteers all have to be registered. So we're going to take that off the table, and compliments to Lynn Hall and her team for taking it on very strongly and proactively for us to have a facility prior to when the new pool gets built. When is it going to be built, by the way? Oh, that was a question without notice, Terry. So the pool is there, and so we'd like to see that go on together with an AED device, which I suppose that her division will be putting. There's nothing available down there that could have helped Paul be attended to quick enough. one was coming up to borrow one from the New World car park area. The other one was going to be St John's, because they were closed. So a AED device will cover both, all the bikers that go past there, the swimmers, and also the campers. Yeah. That's us.
Are there any questions from the board?
Just a clarification
Yes.
question. So when you're say, just want to get my bearings, so if the kids were going to jump off one side and not all sides, which side are you needing?
Well, preferable side is the high side, which is the popular side.
Yellow. The yellow, yes.
No, yeah.
Not the low side.
Not the low
No,
side. The low
that's,
side is the one that's
you know,
come very close to their heads. You don't like to spoil kids' fun, but someone's going to get hurt
yeah,
eventually.
yeah. Because it's all slippery. It's wet and slippery and it's stainless steel. It's just a no-go zone. You know, having done a bit of yachting, I wouldn't go up in the foredeck and open up my
Yes.
shoes.
Did you have a question?
Does anyone have any figures on injuries, that sort of thing, historically?
Yes. Paul,
Excellent.
he's going to be off for over 6 weeks. It's going to affect him. It's affecting his lifestyle. We don't, and given that
Fair
that's
enough.
what felt, yeah,
Fair enough.
going to happen to a child.
Just one more. I think what you're saying is you want to be proactive, not reactive.
That's
You want something done before.
Yeah. So the goodness that, when I say the good, the fact that we're addressing the problem that befell Paul, and that we actually went against council regulation or directive. We cleaned, 6 of us cleaned the pool out. We took our own headgear and we cleaned it out, and it's beautiful. So now it's being able to build from that, making it safe for everybody, and combine the saltwater baths with the big pool when it comes.
Thank you. It sounds
Thank
like
you.
you're in conversation with Lynn, so it's about that. We'll talk about the board meeting, board section. So I have, I've slotted in Peter Moore, and then I've got Jeff Rowling. Oh, no, sorry, Jeff Rowling, then Peter Moore, and then Mr. Williamson. So Jeff Rowling? I'm not down for the discretionary. Oh, sure.
Madam Chair, board members and councillors and members of the public. I have been to the community board many times over the years, but it's always been about positive things. I know that the community board's interested in positive things, so I'm going to try and turn a negative into positive. I come from a long line of Nilsonians. We've been here for about 175 years and have grown apples at the prairie since the early 1900s, and have exported millions of cartons of apples and provided thousands of jobs for people from all over the world. So I have I've lived in Mariri all my life, and I have a strong vested interest in the area and the general Nelson area, including the bay and the fisheries. So I am somewhat concerned to have an understanding that there's been quite a concerted effort to change some of the zoning of the land in Mariri to turn it into an urban development rather than rural. And I personally don't want to see that happen. And there are a number of other people in Mariri who tend to agree with me. So rather than, I'm not going to go through the list that I've given you, everybody can read, and it gets really boring when people do that. So I thought I won't do that, but the way to turn it into a positive is that just fortunately the TDC sent this around not that long ago about all of the proposed zoning changes that were up for discussion. And I would like to see the community board support the zoning changes for the growth of
Motueka towards the west and into the foothills that way. It does make a lot more sense than heading out to Mariri, because if sea level does rise by the amount that some people suggest that it might, getting to Mariri won't actually be that easy. I went to school in Motueka in the tide at that stage, because going to school wasn't always the most enjoyable way to spend the day. Down at the Jubilee Bridge, the tide used to reach there back in the 1960s. So I'm sure that it's not reaching any less further up the gully now. And so that the roads between here and Mariri are going to be quite possibly inundated. The connectivity between here and Mariri is likely to return to the days when they used to ride 7 miles on a bicycle to go to sports fields in Motueka. So I don't think that we should go that way. I think Motueka has got plenty of room to grow off to the west. That's really it. Unless any questions, but I'd certainly like to remain informed. I'm concerned that the process may be taken out of the hands of council and it be a private plan change that's sought, and we end up with a development like Berryfields, and that to me would be not just a shame, but it'd actually be a disgrace.
Yes, Councillor Murray.
Thanks, Jeff. I've got a question. So moving to the west, Jeff, would that land not be better productive land being flat than the hill stuff that's up in behind where this is proposed? So just interested in balancing the productive land.
Well, not necessarily. We used to quite successfully produce as much as 90 tonnes of apples per hectare in Mariri on the Mootry Hills clay. The clay does have its advantages. It starts off as not being the most fertile land in the world, but with the correct use of nutrients, it does become very productive. It's also quite good stuff to stand trees up in. It's reputed to grow the best copsis orange in the world. Unfortunately, it seems to be a variety that's somewhat fallen out of favour with our sweeter teeth these days. But it is, I think people underestimate the productivity of the Mootry Hills. Tough country it was, and the clay is, but it does have its advantages. And good crops can be that offered of top quality fruit.
So the growth of Motueka, so do you envision it's growing or just stabilising? Or so long term, do you think as a town we are going to grow in terms of housing, or I guess
There's not a day goes by that I don't thank my ancestors for coming to Motueka. You know, I'm fully invested in the place and the whole area. And I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of people over the years that have come here and said this is one of the best places in the world, which I've actually came to the conclusion that there was probably not much point in moving anywhere else. So yeah, I'd be surprised if the population of Motueka doesn't continue to grow. But I remember lying on the dentist's chair, and there used to be this photo on the roof, on the ceiling, and it showed all of the eastern side of High Street was all developed, lots of houses, and the western side there was plenty of room for development, and I suspect there still is. So yeah, there's going to be a trade-off between the loss of, there's going to be the loss of some productive land from somewhere. But what I notice with developments in the hills nowadays is that the entire land gets shifted. It gets dug up, the contaminated soils, of which there are plenty of in the Mootry Hills, will get either taken away or dug in, big holes dug and they're buried in it, and then the place is built into a whole lot of small flat sections. Case in point would be I think it's Mount Hope Orchards in Marpua, the development that's taking place there. It's taking an age, and it's going to end up with a whole lot of sort of miniature flat sections and terraced lands. But there's expensive stuff to subdivide Mootry Hills. Probably a good place to be when there's an earthquake, though.
Councillor Walker's got a question.
Thank you, through Chair.
Thank you, Jeff, for giving us this very informative feedback. It was nice to hear your perspective on things. I guess my question to you is, when you talk about promoting the west side of Motueka, my understanding is most of that is leasehold land. Do you have any inkling of what the appetite is for our wider community around purchasing, putting a dwelling on Maori lease land?
There's a bit of me that says that's how all our land ought to be. But I do understand the problem and the issue, but my understanding is that that Wakatu Incorporated and the Maori owners of the land and places have been they have freehold in some land, and that could take place again. So I don't know, maybe I'm not the right person to talk to about it perhaps, but I don't think it's an insurmountable problem. And it does, the land, as we go, there's plenty of water with the connectivity with the existing infrastructure of Motueka, which, you know, I'm not a climate denier. I believe that things are changing. I go to all sorts of places and see it changing. And that's around New Zealand. And I just think that we don't need to sort of leap 10 metres in the air. The town, the development can take place over the next couple of 100 years if we survive the next 10.
Thank you. No more questions. We'll discuss this later, and I'll be in touch by email later on in the week anyway. Thank you. Mr. Moore, Peter.
Madam Chairman, this is not something I've ever done before. I ask for forgiveness if I don't follow protocol as it should be done. I currently live on our family's 450 hectare sheep and beef farm in Upper Murtry. The farm supports 4 generations of our family, and we're a close-knit family with 6 households living on the farm or its boundary. In May 2022, we purchased a 2-storey Ruru tiny home from the yard in Motueka, and I inquired from the TDC about the need for consent for the tiny house or to install a septic tank system for it. Received a verbal answer from the town planner that it was not required, and at no point in the conversation was it mentioned that resource consent was required for a 30 square metre tiny house on wheels. Careful consideration was given by us as to the placement of that tiny house. We didn't want it stuck in the middle of a paddock. We wanted it put on a piece of the farm that did not have a useful and would have minimum impact on the area. We chose a non-productive 450 square metre area close to an existing shed with electricity and water storage on site, and we extended a driveway by 10 metres to get it there. What a tremendous outcome for a young couple, having worked hard on neighbouring vineyards, who had struggled to ever save enough money to buy a house on orchard wages. They were living the dream. I'm sorry. In 2023, my ageing in-laws, who had been orchardists in Mariri, their health was deteriorating, and living independently in Motueka was not an option for them any longer. We wanted to keep them close to the family and allow them to be as independent as possible. It was decided to put a sleep out on the farm close to our main homestead where Kathy and myself live, so we could keep a better eye on them, and a pre-built sleep out was moved on site for them. We wanted to add a kitchen and a bathroom to the sleep out, so decided that it was appropriate we do the right thing and apply for consent on the 6th of October to add 36 square metres to the sleep out. That, in hindsight, was a huge mistake. Dealing with the Tasman District Council has been a nightmare. Paying the non-refundable application fee was just the beginning. Thank you. We were assigned a graduate planner to process our application. And she wanted to know details of airstrips, historic sheep dips, petrol storage facilities, sheep shearing sheds and yards in order for us to put a small cottage beside a shed by our house. Common sense and practical ways to help were not part of the brief, but cut and paste answers from relevant clauses of the Resource Management Act were extremely common. We provided paid consultant reports on wastewater management, and they were deemed unacceptable, and we had to go back to the drawing board. Stormwater from this tiny cottage needed a plan. It needed soak pits when the massive workshop beside the cottage has no guttering. After 5 months of frustration and a severe decline in my mother-in-law's health, my wife wrote to the council pleading for this nonsense to stop and some compassion to be granted. Thankfully, a team leader got hold of this message and sorted it out in one phone call. On the 19th of April, we received consent, and the builders started work on the 22nd of April to build this home that was seriously needed. The conditions of consent are enormous and onerous. I will not go into them all today because I only have 5 minutes, but one was the tar sealing of an existing driveway entrance into our property. It had been used for probably over 100 years as the main access way to the farm. During this process, downers were resealing our road. What a great idea. They used our yard for parking. They stored their gravel in our paddock. We worked together with them, and they would have happily sealed the road if we sealed the driveway, if we were willing to pay the cost of the tar seal, which we fully expected to do. However, in order for that to happen, all the existing material for the driveway had to be removed and backfilled with a compactor. A vehicle access crossing permit needed to be issued. A traffic management plan needed to be put in place. And all this could not be done without resource consent, which we still did not have. To get all the it would have cost about $2,500 to seal the driveway as it was. To get all the consents in place and seal it would have cost $13,000 to do that. This driveway had been used for stock trucks for over 100 years, and I suggest that possibly it had been fully compacted by that point. Downers came and went. The driveway is still unsealed, waiting for the $13,000 cost to seal. I could talk about wastewater. I could talk about the contamination of the site and the remediation that we had to go through. About a 1.8 metre high solid fence to control the dust. I don't know whether you've ever seen dust, but it doesn't take any respect of a 1.8 high metre fence. We have to cover the site in concrete, and I suspect they think we may have uranium stored somewhere. We have spent approximately $80,000 so far meeting the conditions of consent, with much more to come. Unfortunately, the decline in my mother-in-law's health has meant that she will never get to live in the cottage that was designed for her and her needs. Meanwhile, back at the original tiny house 700 metres down the road, the young happy couple were about to have their world turned upside down. Apparently someone took offence at the Ruru tiny house and laid a complaint with the council about it and 2 buses on neighbouring properties. I received a phone call out of the blue on Thursday, the 3rd of October, and I've removed the names at your request, from a compliance officer with the Tasman District Council. I asked where the tiny house was situated and after a very frank conversation, he was refused permission to enter our property. His response was that he would come anyway, and I asked if he would be bringing the police with him as they had done at a neighbouring property at Price's Corner. He asked, did he need to? I responded that that was a matter for him to decide and that we would be on site for the duration of his visit and would record that visit. He asked for a suitable time, and I said Friday at 4:30 on the 11th of October. After a last-minute attempt by him to postpone the visit to another date, he did visit, and was accompanied by a warranted officer who I had previous unpleasant dealings with. The inspection was tense and formal. I suggested that the complainant was the Tasman District Council. Long story short, they examined the premises, the septic tank system that we had installed under the supervision of a plumber, and said we needed to get resource consent. A fee of $1,820 was non-refundable. I mentioned to him that that was just the beginning of the costs and the saga that I have relayed to you and the expenses that we had. A young couple was not able to cover these costs. I asked where he wanted them to live, and I suggested a car park beside a very large white building in Queen Street. We were given a very generous option: apply for resource consent by the 30th of January or get out. I am incensed that I pay the wages of these people through my rates. On the 15th of November, I visited the Motueka Service Centre and asked about how to go about making a complaint. I was told it was very easy. I could do it anonymously, or I could receive the outcome of the complaint. Apparently, I can complain about someone who has no impact on me whatsoever. I asked under a system called Logema, which I'm sure you have heard of, who the complainant was and how much of my ratepayer money was being used on compliance officers when the money could be better used elsewhere for the good of our community. I think you probably all know the outcome of my response. They could not say who complained, and they do not know how much money is being spent. During that visit to the service centre, two things stood out to me. One was the other people who were waiting in the room to be served. Every one of them verbally voiced their approval and support for my comments to the counter staff. Total strangers stood up for me, and initially my nervousness was emboldened by their support. The second thing I noticed was a compliance officer who incidentally passes our farm every day on his way to work, mysteriously appeared behind the counter and hovered around while I was making my complaint. Our daughter and son-in-law are the victims here. My in-laws are the victims here. They are not confident fighters, and our daughter and son-in-law have sold their beloved home at a fraction of what they purchased it for, and they have bought a bus to live in. They've downsized to a bus. This week, they left our district to work on a vineyard in Motueka, when all they wanted to do was live on the family farm and walk their dog every single day. It is too late to get the ruru back. It takes years of savings to buy a house, especially a tiny house. The banks won't lend money on them because they aren't classed as a dwelling. The insurance premiums are higher because insurance classes them as caravans, not dwellings. And yet the Tasman District Council says even if you live in your car for 60 days, it becomes a dwelling. My question to you as a community board today is, what can you do to help these people? your constituents, our fellow members of the community who face persecution from overzealous bureaucrats and lack of support from ineffectual councillors. I have two suggestions. The first is protest. Unfortunately, we saw in Wellington probably the greatest protest of our lives, that our leaders did not listen. They did not even come out to hear what was to be said. And I think protest will possibly be ineffectual. The other suggestion I have is quite radical. We need the community to cut off the funding source for the Tasman District Council by way of withholding our rates. That is the only way I think we will get them to stand up. And that will be a very costly exercise for the ratepayers, because we will be charged a fee for late payment. I believe that we need to put our money where our mouth is and stand up for the rights of other people who do not have a voice in our community. I'm thankful for the opportunity to speak to you today, and I'm fully aware that I will put a target on my back with the Tasman District Council, but no longer can good people sit by and watch while other people in our community are persecuted. Thank you for your attention.
That story. Is there any questions from?
I could ask a lot, but I am deeply concerned over the Ruru tiny home, and I would like us to do a thorough investigation search of when this complaint came through. Yeah, I won't say too much at the moment because we are being recorded, and a target is on my back as well.
It'd be good to catch up with you outside of the meeting, and if you're happy to share some of your notes. But just for your information, before we discuss it in the board report section, is the board is well aware of some of the issues that are happening in the community in that space, and we are trying. So hearing these stories just gives us more vigor to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you for your time.
So our last speaker is Mr. Williamson.
Chair and members of the community board. There's a remote interest from our community members here in Motueka to attend our monthly board meetings. We must ensure that they can hear clearly what is said. It is a complaint as to poor hearing I have received from several of my neighbours. Please could we give this problem our urgent attention?
Yes, noted.
Number two, in the press of the 8th of August 2024, an article on page 9 titled "Fears Sefton Solar Farms Will Damage Protected Farmland." Residents in that area are worried that productive farmland could be lost to the solar farming boom. The Sefton property is classified as very good multiple use land. Does Tasman District Council have a map similar to the one attached to my notes for the Tasman District? That's the map, and it's segmented in different coloured green. And the third one, in the press of the 31st of January 2025, page 16, an article titled "Time to Face Up to Our Disaster Risk," commencing with the statement, "Is this disaster potential being treated as a major sovereign risk and given systematic coordinated top level attention?" Unfortunately, not. This neglect was made very clear in February 2022 when Cyclone Gabriel left a trail of devastation across Tarawhiti and Hawke's Bay, in large part due to built-in risk from decades of poor land use management, particularly forest slash left on hill slopes. Unwittingly, we had let risk emerge and grow until finally revealed by a severe weather event. The response and recovery effort cost the government $2 billion plus, and the insurance industry $3.8 billion in claims. Add to these a multitude of uninsured, uncompensated losses for thousands of individuals and businesses. The 2010 to 2011 Christchurch earthquake sequence showed similar after the event wisdom, costing more than $40 billion. We need to have a properly resourced Ministry of Risk and Loss Reduction and a recommendation to government follow. Thank you, Amy Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Is there any comments from you? Thank you. We'll have a look into that and discuss that later on.
Very much.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to just address discretionary funds and then we'll have the report from Pat. So I know we've got Jude here and Patsy online. So if you go to page 8, discretionary funds. I'll welcome Jude up if you want to talk about your application for the Motueka Army Cadet Unit. Sure. Copying. Okay. One each.
Thank you.
Yep. I thought you were sometimes we have other councillors come in. So usually on the slideshow, but this is just so you can dwell for as long as you like. I'd just like to say thank you very much. And I'd like to hand it over to the chairperson to speak to the chairperson in the meeting. Thank you, Patsy.
O tēnā koe, Madam Chair, and to the rest of the councillors. Ko Patsy toko ingoa, no Motueka ahau, and nā nei noho ana ahau, ki Waimea I te Waipounamu. I'm the chairperson for the Motueka Cadet Unit Support Committee, and our primary function is to provide support to our cadet unit by raising funds. The annual cost to a cadet per year and equipping them with kits, etc., is around about $1,000. The discretionary fund that Jude and I have applied for is looking at what we call the grab-a-go kit. It really is an essential part to the cadet unit, which is looking at the first aid kits that the cadets take out on camps, etc. From the PowerPoint that you would have reviewed, we've gone into detail to explain that we need 2 kits, 2 first aid kits, as well as a trauma kit throughout the year. The ethos of the Motueka Cadet Unit has a strong culture for integrity, comradeship, and also professionalism. And we have a great team who are established now. at the cadet unit in Motueka, which is located at the recreation centre, where we are working with the New Zealand Cadet Forces which is an overarching organisation made up of Sea Cadet Corps, Air Training Corps, and the New Zealand Cadet Corps. Thank you.
Well, for me, I've heard enough. This is fabulous. A very well presented argument for funding, and I'd like to wholeheartedly support it. I feel there's no need to carry it. You've done an excellent job here. There's no need to sell me.
I'm over in a second here. Just let kids.
Do either or myself.
Yeah. Okay. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank
So it
you.
was moved by Board Member Hughes and seconded by Hart.
Wonderful. All right.
All the best. Don't keep up the great work.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, team.
This is you.
Bye, Jude.
Kia ora.
Ka kite.
Kia kite anō. This is for youth between 13 and 15. So if you see them on their devices and you go, just send them down to the unit on Wednesdays, please. Okay.
What time, Jude?
6:30. You know, if they want to be ready at 6:15. Yes, and we'll use them up for a whole evening and send them back ready for bed.
Nice. That's a great idea.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, Kat, we'll bring you in. We'll go back to page 7, which is alcohol in public places bylaw review. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. So kia ora, I'm Kat. I'm one of the policy advisors with the council, and I'm just here to briefly discuss the early engagement that we've initiated for the review of our control of alcohol in public places bylaw. I am joined by Tracy from the environmental health team. However, she does have to shoot off at 5. So if I can't answer any questions after she's gone, then I may have to come back to you at a later date, just through email as well, but I'll do my best as well. So this is an existing bylaw that we're reviewing as part of its regular review cycle. The purpose of this bylaw is really to minimise any issues such as disorderly behaviour, violence, public nuisance, things like that that might result from alcohol consumption in public areas. It provides a framework for the police to assist in managing those alcohol-related issues in public spaces, and just it's really to make sure that our public areas are safe, accessible, and enjoyable for everyone. This is a tool of discretion for the police. So officers can assess each situation and decide whether or not intervention is necessary. It's unlikely that they're going to come in guns blazing on a family picnic or a wedding, having a wee toast and a glass of wine. Situation like that, they don't really have the resources for knuckling down on that sort of behaviour, but it does provide an approach. It enables de-escalation as well without the need for formal infringements or arrests, unless there is actual crime and disorder happening. So it's just a tool in the tool belt for them to use. In this bylaw, one of the things that I will say is what's out of scope is the alcohol licensing and bars, restaurants, premises where alcohol can be sold. Those are covered under separate legislation. Cool. There are some legal considerations when reviewing this bylaw under the Local Government Act. We do need to be able to demonstrate evidence that the area for which the bylaw might apply to has experienced a high level of crime or disorder that can be shown to have been caused or made worse by alcohol consumption in the area. Or in the case of, for a lot of the places in the Tasman district where those alcohol bans have been in place for a really long time, it's a matter of sort of showing evidence that if we were to remove it, the ban, then it might be highly likely that those problems would reoccur again if we weren't to roll over And one of the things that we're doing to support our information gathering around that is we've got an information request in with the police. So we're gathering 5 years worth of data, both in and out of the current alcohol zone areas to support that. The alcohol-related crime and disorder isn't clearly defined by the Act, but just to set you thinking about what we might be talking about, those sorts of things could include vandalism, littering of bottles and cans and things like that, public intoxication, fighting or aggressive confrontations, drunk driving or other dangerous behaviours, noise disturbances, harassment or verbal abuse, or property damage. So our request from the board at this stage is that this is very early days, but we are really interested in your insights on local knowledge, and that would include any historic issues that may not still be occurring, but that they might have been resolved. That helps us to build a picture of how things have been, whether the alcohol bans that are in place are currently working, or any. We're also interested to know if there are any problematic locations, whether they're covered by the existing rules or not, and just your views on the bylaw generally. Gavin's just messaged me to say that he's got the Shap Tasman page up on the other screen, which is great. You'll see on the right-hand side there's a Share Your Thoughts online survey. When I discussed this with the Golden Bay Community Board yesterday, they decided that they would do this as individuals. There's no name included on it for individuals doing the survey, so I suggest maybe that might be an approach that the Motueka Community Board might like to take as well. But you're also most welcome to just email me with any of your thoughts or questions about this particular bylaw review. There'll be a further opportunity to have more formalised input once we consult on the draft in June and July, and of course also when we've gathered all the early engagement information, including what we get from the police and Health New Zealand. We'll also be sharing that information with the community board as well. But that is all I have to say at the moment, but I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you. So are you currently drafting as we speak? Is there anything that you guys have seen in the current bylaw that you're looking to review specifically? Like, is there anything underway at the moment, or are you waiting?
It is very early days at this point. The main difference that I am drafting, but a lot of it, I've been reviewing the bylaws of other councils around the country, and it's a very tedious task, as they're almost identical, all of them. So there's not really an awful lot that we'll be doing to change it. The one thing that I will be adding in is that purpose behind it, just to make that explicit within the bylaw. In terms of adjusting the actual areas, I think it's too early to say at this point. We're really waiting to see what that early engagement comes back at. And the police have been a bit stretched at the moment, so I haven't actually had a chance to meet with them yet, but I will be attending a tri-agency meeting. And of course, Tracy and Dee are meeting with, they've got a tri-agency meeting that happens weekly, so they are in regular contact with them. But the early thought is that they're generally supportive of, they want to continue having this ability to be able to prevent more serious crime from occurring as a result of drinking in public places, and just preventing that nuisance and generally rolling over, possibly with a few tweaks, but we're not sure what those might be.
Thank you. Anyone from the board got any questions? Board Member Hughes, politely raising hand.
I don't believe this. For decades and decades, we have rules in place. We have a bylaw. We can't go drinking at this beach and that sort of thing. Here we have people being forced out of the region. We've got huge issues here, which have, after a year, we're getting absolutely nowhere. And we want to reinvent the wheel with the possibility that someone might drink too much and do something bad? Well, I'm afraid that's been happening for centuries.
I
Okay.
think this is just a scheduled review though, and what you're saying is right.
We
about that,
we
but we
have
can
got
talk
bigger
about it.
things to discuss at the moment. And I strongly urge the board
But if-
to put this on the
Just-
back burner, all,
Mr. Hughes,
please.
just focus on the alcohol one, because I agree, but this is a scheduled review, so it's just the business as usual
I'll
stuff.
be happy to put
And
in
we'll
my
talk about
opinion.
the stuff.
But
Anyone else on the alcohol ban stuff? Have you got anything else to add, Kat, Tracy? That all we need to know?
No, that's all you need to know. Yeah.
Nothing extra from
I
me,
expect we'll
thank you.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Tracy. I'm sorry that we've delayed you and you've got to get going, but appreciate your time calling in.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess that part's up to the board if individual or we can do something together. We'll get to it. Now just to note, plan change 81 7.1 has been removed. And the reason was, so the reason something that they hadn't had the feedback from.
Through the chair, there has been a request that the members of council be consulted, get feedback and the workshop, and then it come out to the community board to have it.
Yes.
Through you, Madam Chair, I find it quite frustrating to think that this has been on our agenda. We have people that come to public forum, and at this hour, an hour 3 into our meeting, we get told this. Why have we not been advised of this prior to actually commencing a meeting?
Did that email not go out to everyone from?
We generally, we do not advise the public of a agenda change. We don't issue something.
No, I'm an elected member of council and I wasn't advised unless you've sent it through whilst I've been on the road back from Richmond.
No, so this was sent through. When did that get sent through?
Monday morning.
So it was sent, and obviously the community board weren't included in the email. Just having a quick look, see if I can find it for you.
Well,
And
let's not waste any more time, but I find it very frustrating, just saying for the record.
someone let that gentleman in, please. Yes, okay, that's noted. I was of the impression we'd all been told. And I suspect that we'll be going to councillors in March. Coming back to us in March.
The chair staff with advice, they're wanting to get through that, and then work through the feedback from council first.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, just process parts. So normally at the very latest, that would be advised at the start of the meeting.
Yeah,
Change the
yeah.
agenda. So that, because that would have at least got rid of an hour and 5 minutes of somebody's time back. If that's what they're here for.
Yeah, that's my view. I didn't say it at the start. I also missed the cut here. So I guess if we can get some clarification from staff when it's going to the councillors and then when it's coming back to MCB would be great. Okay. All right, so we've done discretionary. We're on to board report. Page 14. Okay, so just for public interest, the board met to do a workshop, mainly reflecting on what's been achieved and what we want to focus on till the end of our term, which is going to fly by. And so you can see a list of things in there in our board report. I guess the main point I want to make in number 3 under reflections is the 8-week rule review, which was put forward from the Motueka Community Board to Council, has now been a year since we raised that motion. Yes, we've had 4 workshops since then, but I sense and I understand the frustration that we haven't progressed it any further than, well, not us, but it hasn't progressed any further through council, which we would have liked. That is not to say that we won't keep pursuing, but it is upsetting and frustrating, especially when we've had the gentleman Peter Moore speak, you know, with real life stories, which I'm starting to hear. I know Mr. Hughes has been hearing them for years now, and so has Councillor Walker, but I'm starting to hear it quite regularly. Like every week I'm hearing another person in our community. And we did try last year to put through a request, a motion to council to try and help in that space by triaging complaints, which I'm assuming it was the governance team, which Gavin had advised us at the time of making the motion. It said that it's not within our delegations, so it has not gone to council, which you'll see under point 4. And I guess I've gone back through standing orders and stuff, and it puts me in a position of what is the point of having governance as an elected members if we can't make motions on behalf of our community to elected members who can make decisions. And for me, I think that's, you know, we need to sit in that space and understand that, because if we're governance and staff as operations, then it should be us requesting. And yeah, so that's just how I'm feeling, especially after hearing that speech earlier. Is anyone else from the board got anything to pick up out of our board report? Because with anything before point 6, maybe, because then we'll just have a quick chat about deputy chairs, so around first responders.
Discuss that first.
Yeah. Oh, Barb's unmuted. Okay, off you go.
Item 5, the council's financials. So is that where we pick up the maintenance schedule that we requested December's meeting about the knowing what of rubbish? We requested a maintenance schedule for the basic services that were being reduced.
Yes, I believe that is also written in 7.1.6 level of services.
Right.
So I guess that's just an action point. In December, the board requested a maintenance schedule, the status of a maintenance schedule, so we could get an understanding of the level of service to community in respects to mowing, rubbish collection, cleaning, I guess, toilet facilities. Yeah.
So we'll pick the second one.
Well, we've just made the action, so yeah. Yeah, carry on. Did you want to talk about this first responders?
Yes, so item 6.1. So this is community driven with there's going to be a feature in the Guardian on the 5th of March, which 30 businesses are sponsoring. So we'll have 4 pages to thank the first responders. So which will be the Coast Guard and Land Search and Rescue, as well as the helicopter and the rural fire, and St John's. I think I've covered everybody. So really, it was for the community board whether they wanted to put an ad in as a thank you as well to our first responders. We were initially going to put an ad in anyway about the special projects update, so we could sort of kill 2 birds with one stone.
Yeah. So it's about how much money you have to. put behind it. So it's either 140 plus just or 200 plus just, because then that's a decent size, 110 by 83. Does anyone from the board object to having an advert to support the first responders?
It's a great idea.
Just, we don't know what the advert's going to be yet. It's either going to be promoting special projects, call out, which I don't think we have time to do that, or reflections on we've done.
Yeah, might be easier to do that.
Do you know what I mean? Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Well, I mean, it's in the budget. I don't think we need to do a yeah. Okay, so right. Well, Member Hughes.
Well, once again, I'm nearly in tears myself. Look, here we have a council that is unsure of the legislation to the point where they have sought advice from the government. I've sent all this to you. You've received it. They are confused themselves. They are completely unable to answer my questions since 2019. And now you've seen the email from the mayor. He's not prepared to discuss it any further. I'm saddened by that. I'm just asking questions. All myself and the public are just asking questions, and then getting met with brick walls. Why is that? Why are they being met? Why are they not answering questions? The council, the big thing is fixed to land. That is a big argument. December 2019, I presented a detailed document to the Tasman District Council. We asked at the workshop that the legal definition that I was assured we would get, and I was told that they had got it by a compliance officer, was refused by the head of the legal department under claiming legal privilege. I then put forward the argument that hey, this was for me. This is, you were going to do this for me. Somehow now that's changed. And whilst, here we go, we have looked through our records, and whilst we note there was a legal opinion in relation to tiny homes received in 2020, it is unclear if this relates specifically to your interactions with council. Well, if it's unclear, let's discuss it. Yeah, you know, if it's unclear, why are you hiding it, TDC? This is causing misery. We've just seen it today. It's causing absolute misery. I know I got told by the previous head of building and assurance, whatever it was called before another name, that council can have no conscience with that. I was told that. And of course, other people have disagreed. But crikey, if you can't explain the legislation behind it, why are we just, we've just seen 2 people have left the district. What they don't realise is buying a bus doesn't save themselves. They're still breaking the rules. I think it's time to call this for what it is. The Motueka Community Board, we've been talking for a year. We asked, the chair has asked questions of the council. I have a Legima release, which shows they didn't even bother to answer. What are we going to do? Should I support this? Should I go, yes, how dare these people dare live in tents and caravans and buses? Let's get rid of them. Is that what I'm being asked to do by the Tasman District Council? Should I get on board? I'm scared because I've been told people are going for me. And I've seen that. The council have spent $40,000 trying to get rid of me. And when you look at, let's not get into that, but look, what I'm saying is, am I wrong here? Is this what we do as a community? Evict people from with a legislation which we can't explain. We need to change this, and we need to change it now. We can't carry on like this. We cannot have more people put under this amount of stress due to a small, discrete piece of legislation, which they can't explain. I've even, just the other day, asked, and I said, hey, in relation to your email, then they'd make it a legema request. So I can't even have an answer for you guys here today. I mean, how many months is it going to be until till it's election time? Basically, I might get one question a month, 7 questions. Please, everyone, just tell me, am I being unreasonable here? Is it me? Am I wrong here? Or is this an acceptable part of council protocol?
Board member Hughes, from the discussions amongst the board, many times you're not wrong. I guess it's just approach of how we try and get our message across on behalf of our community.
Exactly. But I thought this was fixed 5 years ago. I was told, I was apologized to, and there was an overzealous enforcement officer. What have we got now? We're not even bothering to get the police when we're going around to collect evidence. I mean, I have some documentation here. This is big, okay? I've tried to discuss it with the people you're meant to discuss it with. It shows collusion between certain parties, and it is not good reading. It is not that good that I don't dare bring this out in public. But I know I am right. How do you prove that someone's living in a tent or a caravan if they don't talk to you? How do you prove that they're living there for 8 weeks? You have to place surveillance on them. That is all you can do. And that is what is done. Is that what this is not some form, and no, I'm not allowed to say that. No, I'm not, so I won't. You know what I was going to say, but I've got in trouble for that before. Golden Bay. How many people live in Golden Bay? There's nothing from Golden Bay. It just seems to be Motueka and the Mootri. Are you inundated? Are you having people turn up, complain? No. What's going on there?
Yeah, thank you. I hear you and I feel it. I struggle sitting here listening to it as much as most of us who do have social consciences. When we had our workshop beginning of this year, we talked about the importance of trying to get our mayor here. I put this out to Richard and to Gavin. Can we please put in action from tonight's meeting that the mayor gets to listen and look and hear the voice of that gentleman talking tonight? Because that's just one of multiple layers of people that are coming to us with this challenge. So if he can't be here and present, can we please get him to listen and give the board some feedback about how do we respond to that? Because our 8-week rule request has been shut down. So how, as a community board, are you empowered to respond to the likes of these people who are now a young couple gone to Motueka? What a loss to our community.
But also to their family.
Well, absolutely. There's multiple layers of hurt and frustration and loss. So please, can we get the mayor to look at that? Please, can he come back with a response of what is the role? What are you delegated to be the voice as we are advocates for our community? Because status quo is not okay. Whether it's a year of elections or not, it's not okay. It's simply not okay to continue in the fashion that we are.
So it's an awkward action because we can't make anyone do anything, but we can have an action to request.
And maybe his presence at the next meeting and all our public forum will be the people who are in this position that we don't seem to be able to support and help.
Yeah. So if he could please, which we can actually bring up directly tomorrow morning, but if he could please listen to the public forum.
It's better to come from you.
Yeah. Instead of a formal action. We'll just raise it tomorrow. Okay.
I say, if we've all been told, keep out. of enforcement matters. I'm told in no uncertain terms. I'm told here. What are we going to do? I'm sorry, I've got no faith in anything like that. We have to do something ourselves. Community board and the local councillors need to do something now. We cannot rely on the council. A whole year has proven that. Okay.
The feedback in respects to our motion not going before council was for if a councillor would raise the motion.
But number 5 on the paragraphs they sent us, we do have an ability under about the performance of staff.
Well, it says the performance of council activities within the ward.
Yes, the performance of yes. And I'm sorry, people saying I'm coming round. I don't with absolute blatant disregard for people's. I mean, police can't do that. I understand the reasons why. I've been told the reasons why. But this isn't about that. This isn't about battery acid from Thunderbird 4 falling out and going into the ground. This most of the time is about a single live-alone woman living in a caravan. That's what this is for. And now a young family, a young couple.
And a dying lady.
Yeah.
Anyway, sure, we could go on about this for ages, so I won't.
We have, like, for months and
Yeah, I know.
2 years.
Let's move on. If we could move on to the next set, we do have very important things to discuss. The port, for instance, I have something I need to read out.
Okay, so
Expect-
under 7.1.1, go for it.
Okay. Sorry, I'm shaking now.
Breathe.
I just can't. Can you scroll down? Just go to.
You can do it yourself.
No. Oh, I can do it like that. Right. Oh, crikey. Look, sorry. Where is it gone? Oh, look, I'm
Are you
sorry.
able to put the agenda up so that public forum can keep up with where we're jumping around to, please?
Okay. Hi, Nick. As discussed, it would be great if you could present this at the meeting. Hi all. This email is to and can be shared with the community board, councillors and council staff. The Port Motueka Users Limited is a company that was set up 10 or so years ago to drive projects at the Port Motueka, where there is a shared interest or common goal for the users of the port. This company has a change of guard recently with some new shareholders and directors being appointed. Shareholders are as follows: the Motueka Cruising Club, the Motueka Powerboat Club, the Motueka Peninsula Club, Golden Bay Motueka Commercial Fishermen's Association, Tallies Group, Able Tasman Sea Shuttle, Port Motueka Marine Services, Wilson's Able Tasman. That is a who's who of the people that support this town. There are several projects on the agenda for this group. They are maintenance, dredging of the entire marine area, all 3 clubs, and associated basins and channels. Repair and maintain the seawall in the main channel. And the main purpose of this email today is to register our interest and concern over the proposed protection order for the sand spit that is currently being worked on by council. Motueka Port Users, MPU, has serious concerns that this protection order will restrict access and or future development of the channel in and out of Port Motueka. MPU wish to be consulted with directly and as a matter of urgency regarding this matter. Thank you for your time today. Chris Wade, Director, MPU. Last year, they were very positive down there about the development of the port. We heard in November, and it was very positive. However, in the next breath, they're talking about making the sand spit protected. This, in effect, is the same as us rebuilding that beautiful playground out there and then going, well, you can't use the pathway anymore. You can't get into it. It's no different.
LG.
A port is a port because it has access from the sea. You take that access away, you don't have a port. Simple as that. Myself, I've run aground on the inner channel. A sand spit has come across and I've gouged the front of my keel. I had the boat out and it's been a real bugger to fix. I can fix these things myself. I don't need to claim insurance. However, that isn't marked on any channel markers. And as I understand it, inside the wharf is TDC covered. When was the last time the TDC looked after the inner channel? I don't think ever. But hey, that's just my opinion. I have no idea.
Want to put that as a question?
No, what I'm saying is,
Oh, yeah, councillor.
oh, sorry.
Just a clarification, one of the meetings I went to before you were at that one, the remnants of the port user group spoke about that channel and how it was starting to build up with sand, and it was supposed to be 2.4 meters below low tide water. So Brett and I took it upon ourselves to go and meet with Kim Drummond, which we did the next morning. Spoke to Kim about it. Kim went away and checked to see if any of the user groups still had a resource consent to maintain their channel. All the consents had expired. So I then informed, his name, the security cameraman. Oh, Ken Nichols, yep. That the resource consent had expired and he was going through the motions of getting a man from Motueka to come and actually survey the channel to work out where they had to take stuff. So he said, leave it with me and I'll get onto it. And here we sit here today, waiting for him to get on with it. Heard nothing since then. I asked him at the meeting that we attended afterwards. He said, I'm still working on it. So there's no consent to clean that channel. It was part of the MPU group's consent to maintain that, look after it.
I understand there's a slight movement on that now. I understand there possibly is a consent for some. I've only heard this verbally, but I think they might have found something. But anyway, I think we need to recognise that the port is a massive growth industry for Motueka, with those people behind it. I don't even think these people are asking for money. They just want to go ahead and do it. How difficult is it to get a consent to dredge, to get the sand out? We just want to move some sand. We just want to move it. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out, if you built that seawall out to the sand spit and you put all of the dredge stuff over the top, it would become a beautiful lagoon in around Jackett's Island there. And the water comes, when it comes out, it will be redirected and it will power out through the channel. It doesn't take much. This is not a big deal to do, everybody. But for some reason, decades, nothing's happening. Let's get this done.
Yalla.
You were at the meeting we were at, and you heard.
No, I didn't go to any meetings.
Why didn't you come to that one?
No.
Okay. Rightio, so Tanya was there with the Port Motueka plan, whatever. Cool. And she said that she had searched for a consent for that seawall to be reinstated. She couldn't find it. And that was when the Motueka Port User Group spokesperson stood up and said, we used to have a consent, so best you go away and have a look and come it again, because it did exist. But Tanya was going to go away and have a look, and we've heard nothing.
Well, I think that don't quote me on this, but I think there could be some good news there.
Yeah.
But look, I don't even think they're wanting money. It's not like they'll come down here for a discretionary fund for $700 or anything. I think they'll do this themselves.
If there's a consent, Paul Smith will do it overnight with the sandridge.
Yeah. Look,
So there's no uptake, but the biggest thing, if the consent's expired, it has to start again.
well, look, as I said, this is such a positive thing. It can only be good for the region. So let's make this happen, everybody. Let's do some good.
What's that process then, councillor Della?
Sorry,
They have to go through that. consent
they'll just apply
process.
for unfortunately, it would have been a damn sight easier if they'd done a renewal 6 months before the old one expired. So basically, it's a fresh start.
So I'm just interested, like in that expiry process, are they not alerted that, hey, in a year, your consent's going to expire?
I think they're fully aware of what they have to go through to get a consent and what possibly may have to happen. The port user group has made indications of what would be a good idea to do with the spoil that's sucked out. There's a lone pine tree sitting outside in the middle of the water there with probably 30 or 40 spoonbill birds nesting there at the present time.
Right, yeah.
And their vision was to put all the spoil around that, make the island bigger to protect the tree, and make it a rather bigger nesting ground. But as Kim Drummond said to us at the time, depends on the rules that we have to abide to when the consent's given. And so that's it. Otherwise, it'll have to be carted out and dropped out in the sea. Top of our scallop.
Does council not inform consent holders, you've got 6 months to renew?
Well, this consent sort of finished 5 6 years ago.
Okay. Right, so they're aware that they have to start that all again.
Yeah, as I said, it was November and this big issue came up and unfortunately they couldn't answer my questions. No one's come back to me since November.
I've asked to be kept up to date with what's going on and I've heard nothing.
Yeah, so the big thing is this area of, is that what they call it? Area of outstanding natural beauty? It's a sandbank that moves. It moves, okay? It's sand. It's a bucket and it's sand. And
Well, that won't be when they finish it. They'll be mixing cement with it to make sure it doesn't move, mate. But it just annoys me so much. Anyway, gotta abide by their rules.
Let's do some good here, everybody, please.
I'm not doing any good.
Well,
do not answer.
I'm just, what can the board do? Well, as my understanding of it, the board has jurisdiction over the port, doesn't it? It's one of those things that have been.
I'm getting a shaking head from Mr. Ogilvie, so I don't think so.
Ah. Look, we can't trust the status quo, can we? Because there was consents there and now they're not. No one bothered to say, hey, this is coming up soon. No one's been in.
It's not in the process by the sounds of it. Okay, so
Sorry, have I said something incorrect there? If there was consents for all this is a port. The consents shouldn't die with the port. You know what I mean? Or it should be an ongoing thing. I mean, what happens in Nelson if the consents run out? I mean, we heard from Mr. Ridd, I think he was comparing Tarakoe. So what's the difference with Tarakoe? Except at the moment, you can get in and out of Tarakoe quite easily.
So through the chair, my understanding is this was coming back to this board.
That's what.
So that was my understanding from the consultants, is scope of that project was coming back to this board for sign off. That's what we talked about at that meeting. So you probably need to keep it on the agenda, and consents and maintaining rather than dredging, probably two separate things, because the status of the sand spit will have an ongoing legacy.
But it's just, sorry, we've already got the post in place. It's just filled up with sand. We're not wanting to do any, we're not wanting to dig a new chat. We just want to move some sand.
Actually, I think, Mr. Hughes, what you suggested was probably right, that the birds will get their own island. Because you physically won't be able to get to it if you cut through it. So the habitat would actually be more secure than it is at the moment. So two things, is it does need to come back to the board. That was absolutely asked for, that the scope of that project comes back to the board.
But we've just been told we've got no say in the matter. We do, yeah. Yes, no.
We don't have like the overall jurisdiction.
Oh yeah, I'm sure me handing advice to the Tasman District Council, go, yes, Nick, a damn good idea.
Well, if you recall in that.
That's why you guys need to do this.
The last conversation where you did raise some good points and the consultants have gone away to have a look at that they didn't realise. So it is helpful.
Now, I got told some consultants wanted to build a bridge over there a long
We'll have
time
a
ago.
look at that.
All right, anyway,
Okay,
so, yeah,
we've got two actions out of there. One is, are you able to share?
I will, look, I
And-
don't know who, if I could, Richard, if you could pass this on to the appropriate parties, I'll just forward it to the.
Share it with the board.
Yeah.
And,
Okay,
and you're in the board
Yeah.
emails. And then the other is just the status on, when that scope of project's coming back to the board.
there we are.
Would be good to get an update even before the board meeting. Okay, anything else out of do the housing stuff? Bloody, bloody, blah. Shall we move on to any of the public forum points? So this one is. There. All right, so Mr. Ogilvy's address first. So first, is a question back to council about public consultation of the new, the updating of the annual plan. Yeah, in particular, the water done well. Motueka wastewater treatment plant, stormwater. Port Motueka structure plan, just talked about that. The Motueka office upgrade, so I'm assuming we are speaking about, which is also in our board report, the old library status. Do we know anything? Anything's feedback?
Yes, we do. The only problem is when it's being managed to create a council considered last Thursday, but the last resolution, I think councillors realised the decision, the report and everything is to remain confidential until the thing's sorted. The decision should have actually been made public. So I'm waiting for Steve Manners to confirm that under his delegated authority, he can make it public. Then I'll be able to let you know. I haven't heard, I was hoping to hear from him this morning, but I haven't heard.
Okay.
Chair. Is the version instead at the end of this meeting, we could go to confidential and you could communicate that?
Yeah.
Because then it's essentially still confidential.
It is confidential until I let you know, because I need to let the councillors all know that it's not confidential as well. Yeah.
Because that could have been a slip up in terms of actually making sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure the second mover and second will be happy with that.
Because if you recall, there is actions in that resolution that's going to make it public anyway. And yeah, so, okay.
Okay, so, right, we'll go into confidential at the end of the meeting. And then once you've got the okay from Steve, then it can be public knowledge. Fantastic.
And regarding the consultation on the annual plan, that decision hasn't been made yet. It all depends on the scale of changes that was in the long-term plan. So council will be making that call, I think about the 27th of March from memory is when you review the annual plan detail.
Okay.
There will be things consulted on. It's two things. One's the development contributions policy and the other's the fees and charges. So those will be consulted on. The annual plan itself at this point in time, council still has to make a decision whether the changes to the annual plan are significantly different to the long-term plan year 2 to consult on.
Okay. Distribution.
Oh, it's just for David Ogilvy was talking about this. New funding, the rates.
Yep.
Gone down, reduced.
Yeah. So.
You wanting, you talked about $24, probably need to make some, you're going to have some feedback on your annual plan, I think in the annual plan at the next meeting that you have in March, on what you would like to include in community board rate. Yeah. So I understand Mike Drummond told me there's financial stuff coming to you the next March meeting. Yep.
Yes, beforehand would be great. Councillor Murray.
Well, it'll be before the meeting, so you'll have it in the agenda. Yeah.
Just I mean, like to digest.
Yeah, you've got plenty of time to rules on it because the council's only going to be deliberating on it at the end of March. There'll be opportunities later to revise it. They don't make a final decision on the annual plan till the end of June.
Okay. Councillor Maru.
Cheers. So, Mr. Kiwi, so the process for the board, if the board were to make a submission to council for the annual plan, sooner would be better than later, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So if the board felt that the $24 return, then sooner, because there's going to be a whole lot of stuff, I suspect, in workshops and numbers and figures, that late part will probably be too late.
Yeah.
Especially if it's not consulted, if it's just notified. So that, yeah,
And whether a $24 rate to the community board rate is sufficient to trigger a
it's an
consultation.
interesting conversation, because we've had a similar conversation about another target rate. It's in the Motueka ward from a beach near us in terms of their operational rate and the reducer.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So it's probably a good conversation to have, because like Mr. Ogilvie pointed out, that every dollar of that rate gets spent back in Motueka for projects that won't get funded through the annual plan.
That's right.
Okay, so let's workshop that to get a submission together and get all that information. So I'll reach out to the board with some dates. Okay, yeah, I think that was all from Mr. Ogilvie. Yes. Mr. Helly. Okay, so we have got our document, and it's going to the two other libraries. We know. The only question in there was the legal advice sought on the document. So I do believe I requested that. So it's just a re-request. That was Kevin. Kevin, I don't think there were any questions that came out of that.
But it was very interesting to note they're going to put signs up. That yellow paint along there,
Yeah.
where it was no jumping at one, but you do jump at one point.
Yeah.
Now, I am officially old. But when that got built, I was doing all manner of fun and games there, and my kids did it as well. And now my grandson is there doing the same thing. Now, I'm survived not wearing a helmet when I've been riding my bike. You name it, I've done stupid shit. Okay, and I've hurt myself. But that it's up to, surely we can't, they're wanting to fence it off. Look, we
So the one
if
that
we,
gets a
if,
seaside.
I feel sorry for the Tasman District Council here, and this is saying something, because they're going to put the sign there, and then it's going to end up on Facebook, and they're going to go and they're going to accuse TDC of being the joy police and that sort of thing. It's not going to be good for us. Maybe please be careful. But if you say no jumping, man,
It'll encourage jumping.
It's just going to, but it's going to give the Tasman just, there'll be those silly, you know what I'm talking about. I see them every now and then about down by the graveyard there. I was riding the bike with wife, and we saw this, be careful, it was dangerous or something because there's undulations in the grass. Have you seen that? I don't know if it's gone now, but oh no. But anyway, yeah, that was just my concern. I think maybe going a bit too far with the no jumping signs. That's what people
It
go
was
there.
more the seaside part. That's what I was getting from the conversation. I don't know what I did actually want to ask. What was that thing at the end?
Oh, there's a grate on the outer sib, which
So
lets all, and it can get a bit slippery. Right. But man, I think I've ridden a bike along there at one point.
I think it's a good idea to have the AED device down there because there's nothing there, and there are quite a few people. Councillor Walker.
So I guess, so Kevin Brewery caught up with me and erased it the minute the accident basically happened. So I've been working along with our reserves team, like trying to come up with how we keep our community safe and how we keep our pool currently open.
What, did someone jump
When
off?
he came to me, so yeah, the accident wasn't from someone jumping, let's be fair, it was a contractor.
Yeah.
So when Kevin came to me and he spoke about the AED, I said, so these devices don't look after themselves. So somebody has to monitor it. to make sure the battery's okay.
Yep.
It has to be put in a place where it's used appropriately.
Accessible.
And it also costs quite some money to purchase said item and then replace the battery as we need it. And I did ask, how did he think our community could fund that? And what umbrella would it sit under to have it looked after? So for example, Tasman Store, I sit on TACA and we talk about numerous things for that area. And one is that they have a machine on the front of the store, but there is a delegated person who monitors, looks after and makes sure that everything's good and contained. And TACA then look at how they fund replacing battery when it's needed. So although I don't say it's not a good idea, I do question who's going to fund it and who's responsible for said piece of equipment. And I might add that the accident, that machine wouldn't have actually changed the outcome for the contractor. However, that aside, that is a high populated area. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but personally, I want to know who would be responsible and what it would cost ongoing. It's not a one-off cost, basically.
Good points. Hold on, Deputy Chair's got something to say.
Cleaning. So it wasn't even a swimming pool at the time.
No. Okay, hold on. Deputy Chair first.
Just to reiterate what Teresa said, when Kevin was talking and Mike, they were saying the seaward side, they weren't saying no jumping at all. I mean, I take
It
kids
says
down.
here they want to.
No, they said it was the lesser of the two.
They want to try and discourage it.
Yeah, but so kids can still jump off the yellow railing, but they were wanting to discourage it from the other side. So they didn't say no jumping at all.
Well,
Yeah, they want
no,
to
he
put
said there's a sign that says no jumping.
They want to put.
And they're saying here, fence that off so no jumping is possible. Says it here.
Yeah.
Have I got, oh, sorry.
But in his
In the presentation,
they were like, we know they're still going to jump off the railing. We really don't want them jumping off the dangerous side.
But you seem to forget there's a sign that says don't do it. Then there could be a compliance officer that will come along and say, you can't do that. There's a sign.
It's slightly different to that. We put those signs up basically to protect the council. If something happened, so well, that's what the sign said. We've warned them. If they want to carry on and do the jumping, that's fine. If something goes wrong, checks us.
Like the bridge.
And that is why, and Mr. Furry said, when that staff member got injured cleaning the pool, I understand there's a lot of volunteers go down there and have working bees to clean the pool. And I said, we needed someone to supervise that, to make sure processes they follow, that no one's hurt.
So he slipped over on the slippery bottom.
Correct. And cracked his head, I understand.
Well, let's not go into the details because it's not fair on the person.
No, that's true.
No, well, I'm
But
understanding now.
there is a health and safety issue there. So we've actually implemented processes, whoever goes there, whether it's a contractor or where it's volunteers, that there's someone that understands health and safety to make sure the procedures that they follow, people are protected.
Yep.
Different to people using the pool when it's full.
Yeah.
We put signs up to warn people. I mean, we could put a big sign up, use this pool at your own risk. And there's a lot of those around.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we've got to warn people about those sort of things so that,
Mitigate risk.
so when we end up having to defend something that's, can we say, well, we did our best to do it.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So I've just,
I know.
I come from a different world.
And I did too.
Yeah.
You're not in the
okay.
bubble wrap generation.
Sometimes we put cotton wool around our kids on that.
Okay, moving on. Jeff Rowling. So
Interesting. The other side. of
did you
the
do,
argument.
yeah, which is good.
No, very interesting having the other side because I have a good friend who lives there, not happy at all. They brought that as a piece of paradise. And here am I advocating for affordable, I'm in a no. And
For housing for our community?
exactly. And I've told him that and I feel awful. But as I said, the arguments come and go. As I said, I'm realising now this is part of being an elected person where you're not going to make everybody happy.
No.
Or anybody.
But then again, you know, as I said, there's housing and there's affordable housing. And
Fairy Fields is not affordable.
no,
900,000.
And I would hate to see, like he said, I would hate to see that turn into a berry fields, because that's not what I've got in my mind when I hear the development.
But as I said, we need help now, and I was hoping that the Wakatu Incorporation development could seriously help a lot of people. But I was talking about all the lovely housing in behind the marae. And some of the
Right,
locals are not
difference, yeah.
very happy because it didn't provide housing for the locals. It's people have come back. So I suppose it's like anything, isn't it? I mean, we had the cheap sections up Grey Street there that were going to be for affordable people. Oh, yeah, I know they weren't, were they?
Okay.
Yeah, well, are we, I mean, this is quite an in-depth
Yeah.
document, so I would be in favour of us actually reading it and digesting it and then having a discussion
Yeah.
and then getting back to him.
Yeah.
Rather than, yeah.
No, well, we can. That's what I mean. It's a very good.
And everybody's right.
And
Yes.
sorry,
Yep.
go to more.
Yeah.
The action from that was the mayor to receive that information, I think. Dated from it.
Yeah.
Well, I believe
Directly, I think, tomorrow.
Yeah.